You're listening to Big World Network.
The Pirates of Kilgore, Episode 1. Written by Joseph Gatch. Read by Ton Krakowski. Time slows. Senses become sharper. The acrid smell of smoke fills your nostrils. Your legs move with the deck as the ship beneath your feet subtly rolls in the sea around you. Screams fill the air, both in rage and in pain. Your muscles ache from the strain upon them. A subtle change in the air causes you to notice a blur of movement to your right. Instinct takes over as you raise your arm, deflecting the flash of steel coming straight for your head. A quick parry and thrust of your sword dispatches the foe. Teresa Windsor stepped upon the chest of the man she had just killed. With a twist of her sword, she pulled it from her victim's gullet and quickly wiped the blood-stained blade across the man's trouser leg. Looking down, she noticed a spray of red across her white linen shirt, her only thought at the time being how hard it was going to be to get that stain out. With the money I'm making from this, I'll be able to afford several new ones. That'll teach me to wear my finery into battle. The noise on the deck was making it hard to hear, let alone shout orders, but her crew knew their jobs and their backup jobs. If one fell, another would take his place and complete that mission. As Teresa stepped over a body, she recognized the scarred face of Ingalls, who was to secure the tiller. Looking up to the quarterdeck, she saw Whistler already fighting his way there. Good man. If she didn't know better, Teresa would think that she was moving through a noisy kitchen. The clang of steel upon steel sounded like a cacophony of pots and pans being thrown about a room. The dull cutting of flesh could have been the sounds of any butcher block, and the smell of blood only punctuated the sensation. In a way, they could be compared to chefs, cutting away the fat to reveal the greater feast that lay below. This Spanish carrack that they had been dodging around the Mosquito Coast for days now had finally let down its guard during a relatively overcast night. With all lights extinguished, Teresa's ship, the Radiant, had taken up position with sails to the wind and pounced upon their prey unawares. A quick salvo of grape shot to tear through their decks preceded grappling hooks and a swarm of men. Now, in the early light of morning, the crew was seeing their hard-earned work nearing its end. Teresa fought her way aft. Several of the Spanish sailors, seeing her as an easy mark, found otherwise, as the experienced pirate left them gutted in her wake. She had been holding a sword since she was 8, whether it was wooden or steel. Being good at swordplay had come with the territory, as she lived most of her life on the streets of St. Kitts, abandoned by a family that couldn't afford another mouth to feed. More times than she could remember, she'd had to fight off other street children for scraps of food, or defend against an unscrupulous adult looking for an easy catch to add to the local slave trade. In a dog-eat-dog world, it was the one with the sharpest teeth that came out victorious, and her teeth were very sharp. Kicking open the door leading to the captain's cabin, Teresa burst into the room. The Don was scrambling with his desk, trying to unlock it. Looking up, his face betrayed his confusion by the entrance. Seeming to have expected a more masculine adversary, the captain quickly relaxed and picked his sword up from the desktop. He sauntered around to the other side, grinning like a fool, cocksure and prepared for an easy win. Seeing his arrogance, Teresa turned her blade tip to the floor and leaned lightly on the hilt. "Well, hello there," she said in the most sultry voice she could muster. "You don't have to stop on my account. I won't mind if you do my work for me." "My documents will never fall into English hands," the Don said, his accent thick. "Least of all a little girl's." "That isn't very friendly of you," Teresa pouted as he approached. I do not have time for this, he said as he reached for her to push her out the door. Teresa's sword whipped upwards, the tip catching him under the chin. He let out a gurgling sound as he began rising onto his tiptoes, trying to escape the point. Teresa began backing him toward the desk. "Oh, I believe you do," she said. "As a matter of fact, I believe that we have all the time in the world." "My men will be here any minute," he bluffed. "You mean the ones dying by the dozen out on the main deck right now? When I came in, it seemed that they were not too concerned with your well-being. Now, are you going to surrender or die?" "I will only surrender to the captain," the man sneered, "not his whore." He looked up, hopeful, as another person entered the cabin. Upon seeing that it wasn't a member of his own crew, his expression fell once again. The big man, much older than the Don, but in better shape and with a killer look in his eye, stepped in and quickly surveyed the room. "Captain, are you finished in here?" Elias Moody, Teresa's first officer, asked. "I was just waiting upon our friend's surrender. How about it, sailor?" The Spaniard looked from the man in the doorway to the woman holding a sword to his throat. "I wouldn't make the lady wait too long, senor. She gets very grumpy when you make her wait. Be glad that sword is pointed where it is. Most men aren't as lucky." "I surrender," the Spaniard said fearfully, dropping his sword to the floor. Teresa withdrew the point and then motioned with her head for the Don to follow Moody. "I'll be a moment," she told her man. "Round up the prisoners onto the main deck and have some of the boys go down and check on the cargo." "Aye, ma'am," Moody answered as he pulled the Don out of the cabin. As he pulled the door closed behind him, she set to work opening the desk. Fortunately, to save her time, the Don, in his overconfidence, left the keys hanging out of the lock. She quickly opened the drawer and pulled out a stack of papers and a journal. Placing them on the desk, she meticulously went through them to see what the Don was so intent on her not finding. Nothing in particular caught her eye, but that wasn't to say that there wasn't something important. They were mostly invoices, manifests, and maps. The book contained log entries and signal flag references. She would have to spend more time later with someone who knew what they were looking for. Locking them back in the desk, Teresa made a cursory search of the cabin, making sure to note everything of value. There were several wall maps and some nautical bric-a-brac that could fetch a fair price, but nothing of real value. It was obvious that this captain didn't waste his money decorating. He must have his treasures elsewhere, or an expensive wife. Slightly discouraged, she headed back outside. Maybe her men had better luck with what they had found. She stepped out to the morning light. The cloudy night had broken into clear skies, and the sun was gleaming brightly across the water. In front of her, approximately 50 sailors were corralled in the center of the main deck, with the Don glaring contemptuously at her. Striding up to Moody, Teresa looked down at the pile of skins on the deck. "So, was this worth our time and effort?" she asked. "The hold is filled with raw leather goods. We'll make a small fortune if we take it out to the Antilles. It will take time, but I think it would be worth more out there than if we went to Jamaica." Teresa paced around the deck, looking at everything around her. Finally, she stopped in front of the Don once more. "What is your destination?" The man just glared and kept his mouth shut. "Let me rephrase that." Teresa quickly drew her sword and slashed the man's trousers at the waist. They immediately dropped to the deck, and she pointed the blade at his nether regions. "What is your destination?" "Havana!" he blurted out while scrambling to cover himself. Her crew, as well as his own, stifled their laughter. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it?" Teresa said, smiling. "Just kill me now, Senora," the Don said with shame. "That's senorita. And no, I think I'll let you live for now. Live with the shame of being beaten by a woman." Suddenly, Teresa looked out over the sea to the west and squinted, trying to see something near the horizon. She looked around and quickly grabbed a spyglass from a body on the deck. Up the nearest ratline she went, ascending until she had the vantage point she wanted. Training the glass on the horizon, she stared for a moment and then motioned for Moody to ascend as well. The first officer gave her a puzzling glance, but joined her just the same. "Something amiss, Captain?" he asked as he arrived up the line. "You've better eyes than mine. Tell me what you see out there." Taking the glass, Moody scanned the horizon and let out a small gasp. "From what I see, 4 ships, hull up on the horizon with full sail heading away from us on the northern tack. Are you fearful that they'll see the smoke and come for us, Captain?" "No, I'm sure they won't even bother. Take a look at their hulls and tell me what you see." Moody looked again, and after a while told her what he saw. "Galleons, I'd say. They look to be a bit low in the water, but from this distance I can't say for sure. Why? As long as they're going away from us, I would say that's a good thing." 4 galleons, low in the water, traveling north along the coast. That doesn't get your interest?" Teresa asked. Moody thought for a while, and his eyes began to widen. "Ah, now you're getting what I'm saying," she said. "Treasure fleet?" "Mm-hmm." They'd be heading for Campeche and Vera Cruz next before stopping in Havana. Moody looked at the captain. He then looked down to the deck where the prisoners were standing. And they were going to Havana. "Mm-hmm." "What else are you thinking, Captain?" Teresa took the glass from her first officer and peered at the ships in the distance, now just little dots of white disappearing over the horizon. "I'm thinking that we are going to have to postpone a trip to the Antilles. There's greater gain to be gotten, and someone will be very generous to us once he sees what we've got for him." "Can we at least drop the cargo off in Port Royal before we head back to Tortuga?" Moody asked. "We'll need the money, that's for sure, but we should keep the ship, just in case. I have a feeling that it might come in handy soon." "And what about the crew down there?" Teresa sighed. It was her usual method to drop a captured crew off at the earliest convenience, or ask them to join her own, but this time she couldn't risk one of them talking. "We get rid of them. Tell the men to make it quick. We have a lot of water between us and Tortuga, and the makings of our fortune." "Aye, ma'am," Moody said as he began his descent. "I just hope the old bugger appreciates our sacrifice." Teresa Windsor, known throughout the pirate world as the English Rose, began following her man down. If anything was to come of this, there would be plenty of sacrificing, that was certain. But if anyone in the Caribbean could pull it off, Kilgore was the one to do it.
You're listening to Big World Network.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.